Hello, my name is Chuks Enwerem, your facilitator for this week. In our last lecture, we examined the rise and growth of the concept of free speech and free press. We thoroughly dissected the objectives of journalism and its roles in strengthening or pursuing democracy and good governance. In this second lecture, our attention will be on news reporting and the power of image. News reporting, which is the main function of journalists, is the art of discovering all relevant facts, selecting and presenting the important ones, and weaving a comprehensive story for the consumption of the audience. It is also known as a report of recent events or a material reported in a newspaper or news periodical or on a newscast. News reporting involves hard work. That is, it involves stamina and patience. Besides reporting a news item, journalists present the news in some ways that can inform how the audience interprets or understands the report. It is this way of understanding or interpreting the report that gives the news report the image it acquires. Over time, the writing and presentation of reports produce different kinds of imagery in the public's eye and may become the definition of the issues discussed. Gender, prejudice, racial segregation, as well as ethnic and religious profiling are some of the media creations that create long-lasting images that could be negative or positive. In this lecture, we will be exploring the relationship between news reporting and the formation of images. Now, let us look at the objectives of this lecture. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to do the following. 1. Analyze news representation in news coverage of issues. Examine news reporting that offers alternative representations to those found in the mainstream media. Assess the impact of representations on the audience and on the subject being portrayed, and evaluate representations of gender in media and information system. Let us examine the case study on news reporting. The writing, reporting, and presentation of a news report by a medium goes a long way to determine how the audience will interpret it. In news writing, journalists take the liberty to frame it, in quote, present it in a way, or place it in certain places in the newspaper, all for the purpose of achieving determined objectives. An average news report should have certain attributes, which include accuracy, balance, conciseness, clarity, and currency. However, in some conventional and non-conventional news channels, the reporting of news could deviate from the known qualities to something a bit deceptive, and this could mislead the audience. Let us consider the following two cases. First case study, news headline. Quote, water scarcity raises disease fears in states. This caption on the front page of Daily Trust, Monday of April 15, 2019. The bold news headline is typical of many newspaper headlines in Nigeria and perhaps elsewhere, written to attract the reader from a distance. The framing of the headline gives more information than the news itself contains. In terms of the actual news content, known as the what of the story, it would have been written thus: water scarcity hits states. The addition of raises disease fears can be said to be editorializing and can create revolution of rising expectations. The headline raises the concern that diseases may become imminent, need not be inserted into the headline, because news is a report of what has happened and not necessarily what may happen in the future. The news as represented is partly a fact, that is water scarcity hits states, and partly speculative, that is raises fears in states, and must be understood to be a part of how news is constructed. When viewed against the various qualities of news, such as source, accuracy, balance, conciseness, clarity, and accuracy, it is found that the news report was based on a statement a minister made a month earlier, as well as a report released last year by multiple indicator cluster survey, which stated that 90% of households in Nigeria consume impure, and contaminated water. Therefore, the source attribution makes it credible. The news story, however, could do with more balance and objectivity in the sense that while it contained criticism against the authorities for water scarcity, it ought to have mentioned whatever effort the authorities had put in place so far to ameliorate the situation. The problem with a report like this is that readers will get the impression that nothing has been done to ease the water scarcity, which may not be true. News should be as objective as possible to allow the audience to make their informed judgments on issues. Now, let's look at the second case study. Headline: Breaking news, Buhari orders, in quote, Customs boss, AGF, 12 orders to submit handover notes. April 17, 2019, Daily Times. Similar to the first headline above, this headline is a direct one without any ambiguity as it addresses the matter. However, reading through the body of the report, one finds that the report under reference was written on 8th April, while this report was written on the 16th of April 2019, an 8-day interval, which raises the question of currency to the report. With respect to the source credibility, Daily Times Online is a credible source because it is a digital online extension of Daily Times Nigeria, which has a rich, long history in print media practice before it was bought over a few years ago. When it is evaluated against purpose of the report, one gets the impression that the author's objective is simply to pass the information about the impending changes in the cabinet and perhaps to be the first medium to do so. However, the use of the word orders suggests that the author wanted to put in a spin to the story to raise a sense of concern to the reader. Now let us go through the power of the visual. Photographs and other kinds of illustrations in newspapers, magazines or film can be described as words in a capsule form. This is captured in the expression, quote, a picture is worth 1,000 words, unquote, commonly attributed to the Chinese, but actually an English language idiom. It simply means that a complex idea can be conveyed with just a simple single picture, which implies that a picture conveys its meaning or essence more effectively than a description could possibly do. Just as a news story can inform and misinform depending on the intentions of the author or medium, a photograph or picture or illustration or film clip can also do much more if care is not taken. One way a picture can be misused is through wrong captioning, no captioning at all, or distortions. A caption is simply a description that follows the picture to indicate and explain it, or to name the faces in it for the reader to understand it better. When it is wrongly done, whether deliberately or inadvertently, it can deceive the audience. And when a picture is not captioned at all, it can also keep the reader guessing. Photographic distortion, on the other hand, is an intentional manipulation of an image or video with the intention to create a wrong impression about the person or institution represented in the image. Whichever way, the audience has to be very critical to be able to associate a picture with the story related to it and make the appropriate deductions. In these days of unregulated use of the internet, one common misuse of digital media is the tendency to crop, enlarge, or manipulate photographs to achieve some selfish but unfair purposes. This practice is common in both pictures and videos, as some unscrupulous individuals doctor original images to present other people in bad light. According to ASI, Darkeyes and Ogunwole in 2013, with personal computers, scanners, and digital cameras, image editing has been transformed beyond the traditional darkroom procedures into high-tech devices and manipulation skills. Photo manipulation is often much more explicit than subtle alterations to color balance or contrast, which simply involves perhaps overlaying a head onto a different body or changing the color of a shirt or even enhancing the textual feeling of an image. These days, image manipulation includes video editing, and it has gone deeper and more sophisticated than was previously known, and they are available all over the internet. The following steps taken from techablaze.com have been suggested as ways to detect photoshopped or manipulated images, and understanding them will enhance your understanding and evaluation of the media content. 1. Common sense. Sometimes spotting a doctor photograph can be obvious. Some things might just fall out of place, and this can be seen in some photographs having slightly misplaced body parts or too enhanced spotless body features. So having to look deeply on any obvious signs from the norm can prove to be what is not right. The second one is to pay attention to the photo quality, known as pixelation. When a photograph is modified, it often creates some digital distortions, which can be in form of pixelation, a condition in computer graphics caused by displaying a bitmap or a section of a bitmap at such a large size that individual pixels become very visible, or just an imperfect coloring, and this can also be a good indicator of the photo's invalidity and possible cause of confusion or deception for the audience. These digital distortions are easier noticed on small and medium-sized photographs than on larger ones. All it requires is a more careful observation by paying attention to certain details. 3. Shifting light. To spot a manipulated picture, you have to examine the way light interacts with the photo objects. If this is true, therefore, shadows and highlights will appear to violate the laws of physics. This is most common when a subject has been added or removed from a photo. A common mistake can be an object that does not cast a shadow or has its lights coming from a different direction than the original image. 4. Google reverse image search. Another way to identify an edited image is by using a reverse image search from Google. This is done by just dragging and dropping a photo onto the Google image search bar. This will bring related images of that photograph. In the case of a photo that has been altered, this can show up the original image or images that look like the manipulated one. Number 5. Wave forensic tools. The wave forensic tool can also be used to detect a manipulated photograph. A forensic wave tool like photo forensics can help to detect a more difficult to tell photoshopped image, as well as show you where the manipulation was done. Photographs and illustrations no doubt enhance understanding of messages. However, these images can be manipulated to give a false impression or misrepresentation of reality. This therefore requires you to be more critical in viewing, evaluating, accepting, or acting on images as a reflection of reality, especially in social media. Apart from manipulated photographs, fake news or information can also give a wrong impression and mislead people. Therefore, you must endeavor to sieve wrong or fake information from good ones in order to interpret well and react appropriately. Nick Robbins, as a media consumer, you would have noticed that in the last decade, awareness of natural disasters has been growing in the public sphere, both in Western societies and down the South. In Nigeria, the media, like their counterparts elsewhere, are veritable tools for either altering or further embedding the negative stereotypes such as gender, ethnicity, or others. The way the media presents these issues determine how the public will interpret and understand them. In Nigeria, the media have produced reports and images of different kinds of disasters, including landslides, drought, floods, oil spills, bushfire, thunderstorms, among others. There have been some images of spills in the Niger Delta areas of Nigeria, and these images speak volumes about the natural disasters going on in the area. What impact do these images make on you as a Nigerian when you see them? Do they make you feel good, bad, empathic, sad, fulfilled, angry? Whichever feeling you get is a reflection of what the media wish to achieve by projecting any of the images. In 2015, after many years of battles with campaigners coupled with intensive media advocacy, Shell Petroleum announced that it would pay out $83.2 million in compensation for the spill to be shared among members of the community. More than 8 years after that, the community is still waiting desperately for the cleanup efforts promised to them. The creeks and shores of this once thriving fishing community remain degraded by the oil damage. With promises like these not kept, only the images continue to remind citizens of the reality on the ground. With images of landslides, drought, floods, oil spills, bushfire, thunderstorms as presented below, the impact on audience can be diverse and varied. Now let's look at representation of gender. The media anywhere in the world and in Nigeria are veritable tools for either altering or further embedding the negative stereotypes, such as gender, ethnicity, and so on. The media, the way they represent these issues to a great extent determines how the public will interpret, understand, and apply them. This repetition. Gender stereotypes refers to socio-cultural beliefs and practices which tend to limit the girl child's rights to education and other important social advantages or benefits. Negative attitudes against the girl child, exacerbated by media portrayals, are considered very significant as attitudes determine behavior which together affect girls' access to education. Many studies on gender inequality in media coverage and representation contend that the mass media portrayal of women in Nigeria is male-dominated and lopsided against women. The skewed representation is noticeable in both news editorials and in advertising portrayals. Okafor, Tubo, Nkwam, Uwoma, and Okala in 2018 say that news stories and items have contributed to the subjugation of one sex while increasing the visibility of the other. For good reason, gender representation in the media is a major subject of discussion between pro and anti-feminists. In Nigeria and other African countries, records have shown that fewer girls go to school than boys, in spite of provisions of the Universal Basic Education Act and the Child Rights Act, both of which are aimed at ensuring the right to education for all children. The result of this is that they cannot raise their socio-economic standards nor contribute to nation building. Questions have been asked as to why these situations have persisted despite governmental and institutional effort to boost female education over the years. Many scholars contend that stereotype is a major drawback. As a media literate Nigerian, what do you think are the implications of these portrayals and stereotypes? How do you spot a gendered media content? How do you react to gender-sensitive media content? Would you be able to promote a gender-balanced society? It is hoped that being equipped with adequate knowledge about the media and gender, you would become much more sensitive to gender issues. Creating gender awareness and sensitivity is important if we must accomplish behavior change within our society. It is an important component in establishing an environment where women and men can work with better understanding and mutual respect. As a media enthusiast, your understanding of media gender stereotyping is crucial towards improving gender sensitivity of the people, a situation that encourages equity, justice, and fair play in our society. In this lecture, we have discussed the writing, reporting, and presentation of a news report by a medium by examining two cases. We also looked at the power of images by examining some presentations on some natural disasters, and as well as gender in the society. We believe that our understanding of the highlighted issues will enhance our sensitivity to the issues raised and lead to a better world for all. We also discussed the power of the vision, representation of disasters, and that of gender. In the subsequent lecture, we will focus on what makes news, exploring the criteria. News commercialization. Thank you for listening. See you in the next lecture.